Hello everybody, my name is Sonnleitner and I will show you something about working with restrictions. Before I start with the topic, I want to take you on a journey with me because I decided to do a presentation here, but I had no topic at all. And I was like, okay, who am I? What am I doing? How do we get here? I'm a hobbyist. I'm like not working in the industry. I've not made any games on Steam or I don't sell them. I'm just making little prototypes for fun. So I went through my projects. Most of them have happened during my studying years, and I thought, is one of those projects so interesting that I could show it here? And sadly, they are all quite interesting, but not interesting enough to make a whole presentation about it. So I went through them. The first ever game I made is Lucid, and it was actually my first game. I did it in Hagenberg in my 4th semester. We started as a group of 5. And we wanted to make a video game. So we all had different ideas. I played League of Legends, so we wanted to make a MOBA. A friend wanted to make an ego shooter. Another wanted to make a cozy game, and we were all over the place. So we had a meeting with our professor, and he saw that, and he was like, guys, I have an eye tracker here. Would you like to make a game? And we're like, oh, it looks fun. Yeah, let's take this eye tracker. And we had like a week with it, and we tried what can it do, what can't it do, and it was a restriction on us because we decided we want to make this the main focus of the game. It should be the main mechanic. It shouldn't be a gimmick because we tried it in Assassin's Creed, for example, and there it just was used that if you look at the UI appears. This is a nice little gimmick, but not really gameplay relevant. We wanted to make it the main stage, so we decided, what can an eye tracker do? Well, the game knows where you're looking at. In technical terms, it's not better than a mouse, because with a mouse you can also point at things, so we thought, how can we make it more interesting? Well, the game knows where you're looking. Maybe an entity in the game could know where you're looking, so we decided that there is a narrator that knows where you're looking. He comments and, oh, you're looking at those, you're looking at this. Then we need a gameplay, and we're like, and we have a narrator. We could do something like Portal, like a puzzle game where a narrator goes with you through the game. So we started with the restriction of the eye tracker and narrowed it down more and more. We had another restrictions. We were 5 programmers. So you can imagine we decided who does the art. I decided, I've used Maya before, I will do the 3D art. That's why it looks like it looks. It's okay, I could do squares and circles and stuff. But that was another restriction because we know, okay, with me as an artist, we can't do high fidelity, a forest or a city. We know we have to keep it to the basics, which fits the aesthetics of like a laboratory or a low-key experimental stuff very good. And that's how Lucid got created, with the restrictions of the eye tracker and me as a designer or as an artist. The next game I made, so next year, next semester, same 5 people. We again was, what game should we make? One of my colleagues said he wants to make an audio game. So again, everybody decided what audio game. I was like, yeah, I want to make something with a beat, a rhythm game. And one of us said, no, he wants to make an audio game where audio is the only input. And we're like, what? Okay. So what can you do with audio? It was 2014, so speech to text was not that common. So what can audio do? It can be high, low, quiet, and loud. That's the 4 things audio can do. So again, we decided we take 1 week, we try different mini games, and we came together and everybody had like this small mini game, but we couldn't make a whole game of those ideas. Then we thought, no, we have like 15 mini game ideas. We could make a mini game collection like WarioWare, or maybe somebody knows Dumb Ways to Die. So we made a game that was just a lot of mini games that got faster and harder with only a voice. You can see on the right side, we actually had a glass, and you have to find the right tone to destroy it. And on the bottom left, it was like a house, and somebody was walking by. It could either be a policeman or a child, and the child you have to scream because you have to scare it. But if it's a police officer, you have to be quiet, because if he finds you, he arrests you. And in the top left, it was like you have to saw a tree in half, and with always high, low, high, low. Fun little game. So restriction, voice only. With that, another restriction happened because we thought we need a microphone. Not every PC has a microphone, but smartphones do. So we make a mobile app because every phone has a smartphone, has a microphone. which brought us to the art stuff, because we know the phones in that time haven't been that powerful, so we didn't need that good of a graphic. So I am, as the 3D artist again, I think I improved a lot. Then at my master's we had a course where we had 1 week to make a prototype, and it was about doing something technical different, was like the prompt of this course. And we decided to make a game with the gyro of a smartphone as the only input device. So we made a styrofoam ball, put the smartphone in there, connected it to Unity, so you had the ball in the hand and you could rotate it. So we had no game in mind, only this gyroscope. So you turned and we were like, this feels like a planet. A bit cool if you turn a planet. What could you do on a planet? Well, you can dodge bullets or something. And like this happened in a week where you just have to turn the planet, dodge those fire bullets, and just get a high score. So you see the restriction of the gyro brought us along the way to make this little prototype. And the last project I made, this was actually my master's, how I got my master's degree, is Haptonimo. Again, I was searching for a topic for my degree, and I was like, I could do so many things. And then I decided to restrict myself on using only haptic feedback as a feedback device. So the game only works with vibrations. Unfortunately, there is not really a controller that could work that good with only vibrations, so I had to make my own. This was very challenging, and most of my time went into this control. It was like a ball, or is a ball. I would have loved to bring it with me, but this was like 2 to 3 years ago, and I turned it on and it didn't work, because I have to admit the soldering was maybe not that solid. So it's maybe I get it running for a next meetup, but I don't think so. But the gameplay was basically a little ball where you have to open a treasure. Like maybe if you know Skyrim, where you can unlock chests, it was like that. It was vibrating, and the closer you got to the point of unlocking, it vibrated less. And there were like mechanics: if you shake it, you lose, or if you are too fast, you lose, and stuff like that to make it more challenging. So, question to you, all of you: have you worked on projects where you started with kind of a restriction, where you thought, okay, I want to make something with this specific input or output, or anybody? Hand in the air. I have like 5 people. Okay. Now, who participated in game jams? Oh, that's more people, because game jam is basically the same as restrictive game design. You have restrictive time, which makes the scope of the game smaller, because in most game jams you won't be able to make an MMORPG. It will be a small prototype. And also the theme is a restriction, because you have to work with the theme to make a game. So that is basically restrictive game design. So there are so many restrictions, and I tried to categorize them. So that's just my interpretation of this whole thing. I want to make this a little bit open, so if you want, just stream in if you find something fitting to the category. So let's start. The first thing, in my opinion, is restricting conditions. It's like outside things. Time is an example in a game jam. If you only have 2 days, you make another game, then if you have like half a year. I saw this during my studies, that just the scope alone defines what games you can and cannot make. The team is a restricting condition. Like when you have 5 programmers, it's hard to make like a visual novel, because, well, the art is not there and the writing will not be there. So that's also a restricting condition. And also money can be a restricting condition. If you have more money, you can maybe use more expensive tools or buy your assets or whatever. And if you have less money, you have to work with this condition somehow. Another condition is restricting the input, like I did with the gyro or the eye tracker, or audio games, like if you only use your voice or voice commands or something like that, or also a wheel if you like make a game with a wheel. Wouldn't it be interesting to make a game with a wheel that is not a racing game? Just saying. Make an MMORPG with a wheel? So the next thing is restricting your output, like I did with the haptic game. I have to admit that's very hard, because haptics, we are not so used to them, so it was very hard to find gameplay that really is understandable for people, because you have to learn a lot of new things. We all know icons, what they mean, what means a safe icon, we all know that. If you get this ball that vibrates, you have no idea what those vibrations mean. You don't know what's a good vibration, what's a bad vibration, so you have to learn with this. While I made analysis from a game, I found audio games. Those are games that only work with audio. That's super interesting. I tell you, try audiogames.net, there are a lot of those, and it's just so interesting to play those, because we're all used to visualizations. I tried them. There was one, basically you just hear in the left and right ear where the monster is, and you can jump left and right and shoot it. I could do that. But there was a game that was basically an open world game, only with audio. It was amazing, but I couldn't play it because I was so overwhelmed with the noise and I didn't know where to go or what to do. But I saw in the comments that a lot of people that rely on them because they're, for example, blind, they really love those games. And this is a spectrum that is kind of interesting for like people to explore. Another restricting output would be color. Make a game with only 2 colors, or maybe only with 1 color, something like that. And the last example I have here is with an LED line. It's called Line Wobbler. I was at the expo in Hamburg where I showed the eye tracking game, and right next to us there was Line Wobbler. Basically this game was just a LED line and a door stopper. And the game was basically every LED was something of the game. You had a character that was a red LED, and with the door stopper you have to move it forward and your red LED goes forward. But there are these yellow barriers, I don't know, yeah, I can see them. They rush towards you, and every time they touch you, you die. But you have to wobble the doorknob to destroy them. This was the whole game, just move forward, wobble, 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 forward, wobble. It was super fun. And one of the most impressive things was, like, the creator went there and he was like, yeah, he wants to design a new level. And we were like, where's your computer? He just took the LED and made an 8 out of it. And he was like, yeah, that's a new level. And I was so mind blown from that. So that's so interesting. I thought of doing something like that myself because that's such a cool idea. And the last restricting thing is game design restrictions. When you just decide on specific rules or design ideas you want to force. For example, move without buttons. Make a platformer, but you're not allowed to move with WASD, maybe with your mouse, or I don't know what you could use to move. Or you're only allowed to use 1 button for the whole game. Design a game around that. There are also some games that take like only 60 seconds for 1 round. Also very interesting idea. Do you make the level so short? Do you make the level repeat all the time? The 4th idea, I would love to make a game. It's about unknown controls. It's a little bit of a rule that the player should know what happens when you press what. But what if you try to make a game where the player doesn't know what buttons do? For example, the game tells you, hey, move forward. Then you press W and nothing happens. Then the game tells you, ha, it's not W, try a different button. And you can play with the player in that way. So you just break the rules that you think that are there with those restrictions. Also, like I said, a wheel controls, but not a racing game. A strategy game with wheel control, something like that, I don't know. A game that I played, I think when I was like 12 or 14 or something like that, was There Is Only One Level, or This Is the Only Level or something like that. Maybe some of you know it. It's the game from the screenshot. You play a little blue elephant, and there is only this one level. And every time you get to the finish, something changes about the level. Maybe when you step on a platform, it falls down. Sometimes the spikes become the goal all of a sudden, so it changes the rules of the game, but it's always the same level, just with different rules. If you find that interesting, how can you do that? So the first thing, define your restrictions. Find something that sparks creativity in you, that you think, oh, that's such an interesting concept, I can do gameplay around it. Analyze it, think, why is this restriction interesting? For example, with the eye tracker, we looked at it, we saw what does it good, what can't it do. For example, we found out that we thought that the first thing, it only traces your gaze where you look at. But then we found out it also traces which eyes you have opened. So we made gameplay that there are platforms and you can only see one part of the platforms if you close one eye and the other part if you close another eye. So you always have to close one eye, close the other eye, jump. Funny side note, we found out that not everybody can close only one eye. All 5 of us could do it, and we had the first playtest with a lot of people, and after like the 5th person was sitting there and was like, what do I have to do here? And we're like, yeah, close one eye. And he was like, how? Like, okay. And then we like helped him with, I put my hands like in front of the eyes because that also worked because it stopped the eye tracker. Just a little funny side note. Find the strengths of the restriction, like I said, but don't overdo it. Some restrictions are fine, but don't, if they stop your creativity because you're putting too many restrictions, it's also not good. I would say thanks for your time. If you have any questions or ideas, we can brainstorm a bit because we have still a little bit time. So thank you for your time. Any questions or ideas? Yes.
Why do you, I mean, I myself put it in restrictions because I am a solo developer, but why did you put a team as a restriction? Because if you do a collaboration, the more people you have, the more open and more men or women power you have. So if you had a project with just the 2 of you, one more would have been open and not a restriction.
That's right, but we as a team had restrictions because we had different strengths. For example, we are 5 programmers, so we could do cool gameplay stuff and could do cool mechanics because we have people that program them into it, but we didn't have the art stuff. We didn't have writing, we didn't have graphics, so we know we have to do something where we need mechanics. For the puzzle game, for example, we had, I think, 10 different puzzles because everybody tried their own mechanic and brought them into it, but we only had one art guy. And so I did just the blocks, and people are coming and say, I need a button, and I need a door, and I need 10 walls, and that's what I did, and the other 4 people did the programming. So that's like the restriction. You have to look at the team. What is our restriction as a team? For example, what if you have a 2D artist? Then you won't make a 3D game. Or if 2D guy says he wants to make a 3D, he can do that, but it would be smarter to do the 2D game. Sasha.
Perhaps I have something to add to that. I myself, I teach 2D animation and pixel art at HTK Academy, that's an academy in Hamburg. And every semester they have to do a game jam with everyone. First semester, 6th semester, everyone. And the team restriction is quite interesting because some teams, they only consist of like 4 people from the first semester and 2 people from the 5th. And some are like, there's one legend, that's what they call the alumni, and 4 people from 4th semester and so on. So that's a complete mix. And they all have to do something with what they have. So sometimes they don't have 2D people, but they really want to do a 2D game because that's what they learned so far. And some of them, they are really 3D people, but they're 5 artists and like 1 person who can actually program. And that's very interesting because they have to come up with something. And they almost always do. So sometimes there's a little infighting, but at the end of it, that's a really great exercise. And yeah, I really like what they come up with. Yeah, and as a question, do you have any kind of favorite games that handle restrictions or use restrictions that I can buy right now?
I have to admit, I have, what restrictions mean is for me indie games, because they have smaller teams, smaller budget, so the mechanics are way more compromised to the core what's interesting. I don't often play like AAA games because they are all the money, all the budget, all the people, and they have so much in there that's also watered down. And those indie games, they know their strengths and their restrictions they have and make something out of it. So I would just say play indie games, and I bet somebody in the indie game, maybe they didn't know it, but they sat there and told each other, so what can we do? That's basically working with restriction, finding out what can you do. Yes.
I can maybe answer the question regarding a game with restrictions. Stanley Parable is quite a nice game. It has a lot of restrictions on how you as a player actually discover the world. I can totally recommend it. Regarding the question, how did you solve it? What is a good and what is a bad haptic? Like, what was your solution in the end? Did you zap them or?
As the gameplay was that easy that you just have to open the treasure. At the beginning, I did a study and I told the people what vibrations mean. But I found out that strong vibrations and fast vibrations meant danger for people, and slow and not so hard vibrations, they felt safer. So that's why the closer to get to the right point, the vibrations slow down and become more quiet.
So hot and cold.
Yes, basically hot and cold, yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
Yes?
I'd like to add one more category of
Sure.
limitations, which I think is pretty cool. Like technical limitations in terms of legacy systems or legacy platforms, like doing a game which would have run on an NES, for instance. And I think there's currently a big hype like for PS1 style games, for instance. So I think this can be pretty nice, like in terms of graphics, obviously, but also in terms of sound, for instance. Or I think there is even a game jam where you need to create a game which where the build needs to be below a certain file size, which is only a few kilobytes. So from a programmer point of view, this is pretty cool, I think.
That's actually a very good category. Yeah, I like that one.
On that topic, I remember, I'm not sure if anybody here follows on YouTube Sebastian Lack, but he made sort of a competition of making a chess engine that could not use more than a certain amount of tokens in the code as well. So that's another interesting way of making limitations, like actually forcing yourself to be creative with the code even if it's not optimized.
Yeah. Those are also very good points. I can't imagine honestly, because today's memory and everything, there's so much there that we can make what we want, but if you have to think back, the programmers, like they had to squeeze every bit out of every game. That's very interesting, and I think brings also creative ideas, because they have so very little to work with, so you have to be more creative with it. I've read a ton of examples where people are like, yo, this system, Silent Hill, why is the fog there?
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the resources to render the whole town, so they made this fog, and now it's like the best gameplay ever, and everybody praises them, and it was an accident because they had the restriction of the memory. I think it was the memory or something, just the performance was not there. That would be an example for how a game with restriction. Yes?
I have another example on restrictions, but for the people that play it. My dad, for example, he doesn't speak English or any other language, and he's not a big reader. So if a game is not in German or doesn't have any voice actors or anything, he more or less can't play it. So that's his restriction. And I always see him, I want to play this Baldur's Gate thing, but I can't read. And there is so much text, so if you have like a haptics game like you did, it's easier because you just have to explain it and you can play. But if he wants really story-based gaming and everything, it's harder for him if it's not in German.
Yeah, that's restrictions the player have is also an interesting idea. Like with audio games, people that make audio games often make them for blind people, because they know blind people have restrictions and can only work with audio. That's very interesting to also look at from that side. So what could the people that use my game have for restrictions? Here we are on the whole accessibility. What should be more of a focus with games that everybody can play them. Yeah. Thank you. So I think that's all questions. Thank you again, and see you later to talk more.